Alright, so today it's Foundation Friday. This is usually where I try out a new foundation every single Friday on my channel, but sometimes we switch it up, do foundation collections, do favorite powders, any kind of base-related topics. So I have dry, textured skin. I had years of cystic acne. I recently went on Accutane. I have tons of videos about that if you're new here, but I have nailed down a routine that I just absolutely love and that really works for my skin. If you have textured skin, it can be really hard to find products that don't just totally emphasize everything and look cakey and crease and just sit on your skin horribly, at least for me. So if you've seen any of my foundation videos, you know that I don't just have that skin that you can plop anything on and the foundation magically looks smooth and beautiful. A lot of people have that kind of skin and I'm like, damn, what a world. So it just goes to show that foundation and face products especially look completely different depending on your skin. So even though this looks like this on my skin, it might look completely different on your skin. Just keep that in mind. So these products on my skin work amazing. You guys have heard me talk about these actual products a ton. So I'm not focusing as much on the products as I am on like the technique and how I apply it and just things that I do to get the kind of coverage that I want to really help out with texture and to smooth everything over. So this is like my go-to routine. It also just happens that all of these products are drugstore. So that wasn't like intentional. I just love all these products and I realized as I was putting all these in a bin that every single one was drugstore. So yay for an affordable foundation routine video that's also smoothing and looks better than a lot of my high-end foundations. So if you're excited for this video and you find it helpful and you enjoy it while you're watching, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, you can join the Bayrito family and subscribe. I upload every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Alright, so I've already washed and moisturized my skin. I recently did my skincare routine video if you want to know how I kind of help out with texture and stuff through skincare because that is super important. But in the morning right now all I have on is my usual moisturizer, so it has a super glowy look to it. I don't use primer every day. If I do, I usually use the Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer or I'll use my Revlon Pore Reducing Primer, but I've also been trying out this one, the NYX Angel Veil, and so far I like it. I don't think I love it as much as the Revlon Pore Reducing, but I'm going to use it today. I usually just focus it on my pore area and then kind of bring it out. I do feel like it helps with the pore situation. I have pretty large pores around here. I don't like bringing this on my forehead, so I'm just going to keep it around this area. The foundation I'm going to be using, it's no surprise, COAO Long Lasting Life Proof in 101. I have so many backups of this foundation. Is a little absurd because I'm just terrified it's going to go out of stock or get discontinued. If you haven't been able to get a hold of this on Walgreens website, make sure you just put in your email to be notified when it's back in stock. $7 on Walgreens, you can't go wrong. You can build this up, and I just start out with a brush, and then I do go in with a sponge that I'll show you guys. But this one, for some reason the shade 101 doesn't oxidize on me, but the shade 102 oxidizes like crazy. So with any of my foundations, I almost always use stippling motions like this, rather than full-on blending. This is the IT Cosmetics Heart Brush. It's super soft. Great. Also love the Sigma F80, F82. But if you use stippling motions like this, you're just going to get the best coverage possible, and you can see that covered pretty much all of my like redness, scarring. You can still see it on that side coming through. And you can build this up to get full coverage if you stipple and do a second layer, and it doesn't get cakey looking. It still looks really smooth. I just love the way this sits on my skin, and this foundation wears amazing on my skin too. It doesn't break down throughout the day on my skin. And I've had messages from you guys, both with people having oily skin and dry skin, saying that this foundation works for you. So I feel like this is one of those that hopefully you could probably make work, whether it's if you have oily skin and you're using like a mattifying primer underneath or some kind of different powder on top or whatever just to help with the oil. But hopefully, no matter what your skin type is, this foundation can work for you. So like I said, my problem areas are usually like my pores and then creasing around here. And with this foundation, I don't get bad creasing throughout the day. The shade matches me. It's so hard to find like a neutral, true neutral undertone foundation. And the shade is like pretty much perfect for me. It looks gray swatched in like Foundation Friday videos next to other foundations. So I don't know, apparently I have a gray undertone to my skin because it works. So same thing on the forehead. First I go in with a brush. A lot of foundations look really heavy and cakey for me right on the center of my forehead. This foundation just looks so smoothing and plump and beautiful. and it just feels really comfortable on the skin. Like I feel like I'm wearing like a, you know when you put on a BB cream and it just feels really good, like you feel like it's doing something for your skin for some reason. Okay, so now that I have that first layer on, I just go back in with whatever I have left over. I just have a tiny bit on the palette just to build it up on my scarring, and I just want to show you guys the kind of coverage that you could get if you wanted more coverage. Also with foundations, you can just make them look totally different based on, again, how you apply it with the brush and also just how much product you're using. When I had acne, to get the kind of coverage I wanted, I would have to use a lot more product. If I wanted to use this foundation and have like a no makeup day, I totally could. I would just use a dab of it and blend it over my face and get lighter coverage. So you can really work with foundations to get the kind of look that you want. When you're building it up, it is going to depend on the foundation to see if it's buildable and how much coverage you can actually get out of it. For whatever reason, this works so much better with a dry sponge for me, but this is my LA Girl sponge. It's super soft. It's like one of my Holy Grail sponges. When I do my foundation, I almost always take this dry and just put a tiny bit on here, like just a dab, and I just go over my forehead and then like any of the areas I mentioned that I get the creasing, and this just like takes it to the next level and just really smooths things out. I love that I don't have to dampen this at all. Like go to the sink and wow, rough life. You have to go to the sink and dampen your makeup sponge. I have barely anything on here now, and again, I'm just going to kind of smooth it over. You don't even have to put any more product on if you don't want to. Sometimes around this area, since I do crease, I don't add more product. Here's what it's looking like with just the foundation on, the kind of coverage. So I feel like we're at low full coverage, like on the full coverage spectrum. Low full coverage. It did cover all of my scarring and stuff. You can still see like a couple tiny little things coming through, but for the most part, it looks like full coverage. If you had acne, I don't think this would be complete full coverage. I have a whole video on extreme coverage foundations, so I'll link that down below too. Those are foundations that like truly cover acne. All right, so next up is concealer. I've been loving the collab, I think it's called the No Flaws Liquid Concealer. The writing is already rubbing off on here. This is from Sally Beauty Supply, and it is beautiful. It's not the most full coverage, but I like this because I've been finding that the powders that I've been using actually give me coverage underneath my eyes. I don't need my concealer to be like complete full coverage because the powders do add a little bit of coverage in there. So instead, I'm basically trying to wear concealers that have minimal creasing on my under eyes because my under eyes crease like crazy. There's no avoiding it. It doesn't matter what concealer, powder, whatever I'm using. They just crease like crazy because I have lines under there. If you have lines, it's going to crease. So I just let this sit on for about 20 seconds probably, and then go in and blend it out. And once I can kind of like feel it starting to dry, then I go in and blend it out. I've been still trying to find a replacement for my Morphe G38 that I like. I've tried a few different brushes, still can't find one that I absolutely love, but this one I've just been using. This is the E45. So the two powders I've been using under my eyes are the Physicians Formula powder, which I also use on my face. I love this. This is the Airbrush pressed powder. This is basically like a powder foundation. It has pretty good coverage. And then I mix it with the KK Beauty powder, and this in the shade 1. So this obviously is in drugstore. This is the only thing in this whole video that isn't drugstore. But my favorite drugstore priced affordable powder that works for my under eyes is the Maycheer pressed powder that you can actually get on the Wish app. I think you might actually be able to get it on Amazon now too, but it's a little bit more. But it's around $3, and that one just hasn't been working for me as well as this combo lately, which is why I'm using this. So I just dip back and forth between the two, and lately I've been using this brush and it's been working really well. It's the E49, and it hasn't been applying it as heavy, but it still gives me the coverage and it doesn't like make me crease as bad. But you can see this side versus this side, it does add some coverage in there. Alright, so the only thing with the CYO foundation that might bother some people is that it does have a tackier feel to it, so you do need to kind of set it with a powder, or set parts of it with a powder depending on your skin type, if you are going to be blending bronzer and stuff on top, or if you just don't like the feeling of like having a little bit tacky foundation. So for that, I go back in with the same Physicians Formula powder. This is awesome for getting coverage out of your powders because it is so dense. Press it in, and I only apply my powder where I either want more coverage, like this area, or where I'm going to be blending other powder products on top, because that way your other powder products just glide easier since it's going on top of a powder and not like a sticky base. It just doesn't look like there's a powder sitting on top of my skin, which is why I freaking love this. So because I have dry skin and I get a lot of creasing and stuff around here and dryness, I don't bring my powder anywhere in this area, but I do bring it up on my temples just so my foundation doesn't rub off when I'm like pushing my bangs back, and that way if I want to bring my bronzer up to my temples, I can do that. I don't bring it anywhere else on my forehead. If I put powder right here, it just looks super cakey. Doesn't matter what the powder is. So I would say if you have dry skin or if powders just will usually look cakey on your skin, try just targeted powdering. Like only apply powder to certain areas. You don't have to powder your whole face. You can powder parts of it. Do whatever works for your skin. I feel like sometimes we have this idea, whether it's from watching YouTube videos or whatever, Instagram, that you need to do your makeup a certain way, and you just don't. Just find what works for you. Everyone's skin is different. Products are going to sit different on different people, so just play around and find whatever method works for your skin. I'm going to quickly do my brows, and then I'll be right back. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of shape with my Joe brow pencil. So I'm going to show you guys how I've been doing my blush, bronzer, highlight, setting spray, and then that's the base finished. So for bronzer and blush, I've been using both by Collab. I love these. The way that I like to apply my bronzer starting out is kind of like pressing it on and then blending. If I just go straight in and blend, it can lift up the product underneath. So this is the Flower Beauty bronzing brush. It is amazing. It's so soft. It applies bronzer beautifully. So I'm just pressing that in, and I'm gonna first start out and just tap like I said. Then I can kind of start to blend a little bit more once that product's on there. The tone of this bronzer just works really well for my skin. I don't find it to be too orangey. On most days, I don't use a contour and a bronzer. I just like my bronzer to be kind of more like cool toned, not super warm. So it just depends. If you want like a more chiseled contour, you could definitely go in with a contour and a bronzer. You could just use a bronzer, whatever you want. I also love the BH Cosmetics #1 brush. This is really nice for blending bronzer too. It's a little bit bigger, so if you want more sculpted cheekbones, I would say go with this one, but if you want just like an overall warmth to your face, go with the other brush. This guy always saves the day. I almost always go back in either with my powder if I need to like tone down the warmth in a bronzer. I'll just go back in with this brush and the powder and just go over it. Or if I don't feel like I need to use any more powder and I like the color of the bronzer, then I still go over this just to really blend it into my skin and give it that like airbrush kind of look, just so you don't have lines and everything just blends really nicely. I do want to add a tiny bit up to my temples today. So again, I start and just kind of stipple on. I don't full on blend at first. Just kind of pull it back into my hairline. So now for blush, I also love this brush for blush. Brush, did I say that right? Brush for blush. Yeah, brush for blush. My blush go-to is usually this Amazon brush. This came in a brush set. This is the only brush I think I use from that set still. Or I'll use the Sigma F15 Duo Fiber. I love using this brush if I have more of a pigmented blush. This just blends it out super easily and gives it more of like a light application. And again, I just pat this on. I don't go in swirl motions or anything yet. I've been liking my blush to look a little bit more natural, so I haven't been putting on a ton. Alright, so for a highlight, I actually have an older video where I talk all about highlighters that don't emphasize texture. So because this is a smoothing, no texture kind of makeup look, I'll link that video down below, even though it's probably super embarrassing because it's very old. A lot of highlighters just totally emphasize my texture. They just look like chunky and glittery. You can just like see them on top of your skin. So I've been loving this highlight, which does not do that on my skin. This is the Smoke and Whistles Super Shock Cheek by ColourPop. Super affordable. You can get this on Ulta. I think it's around $6 or something like that. And this one, even though it looks like a cream highlight, it doesn't apply weird on top of powder. It blends totally fine. It has a very like dry texture. It's not a super wet cream, so I think that's why. But I've been using this almost every single day. I love this for just like a glow from within kind of highlight. It doesn't look glittery on the skin. If you've tried Flexitarian, that one's definitely more intense. This is more of like a subtle everyday kind of highlight. So I just take my middle finger and press it in. And then I've been actually liking bringing this basically to like the corner of my eye. I saw I think it's the founder of ColourPop, Jordan, on Instagram stories doing that with the Super Shock Cheek, and it looked so good. And ever since then, I've been doing that with this highlight, and it just like blends everything together so much better. I just love the effect that that gives your skin. By the way, I burnt my ear on the hot pack. We can ignore that. I apply this on my Cupid's bow with the tip of my nose, and again, it doesn't like lift up any of the foundation when I do this. And then I bring it right, like halfway through my nose, right on the bridge right here. I don't like to connect it fully but I do like to add just a little bit right here. And then sometimes I go back in with my dry sponge again and just kind of like blend that out. Just gonna apply a little bit of a balm to my lips. They're looking a little chapped. Are you freaking kidding me? They're blowing leaves another damn time. All right, we're gonna wrap this up. So last step is setting spray. If you want smooth, glowy, plump looking skin, I feel like setting spray is so key. It can completely transform a foundation and just the way that products are sitting on top of my skin. I don't feel like setting spray for me does as much with longevity. Like, I don't find that most setting sprays keep my foundation on any longer. When I had oily skin, that was much more of a problem for me. With dry skin, foundation just kind of like stays on better throughout the day. This isn't drugstore, but if you want a really long-lasting setting spray, I would say the Makeup Forever Mist and Fix. But what I use setting spray for most often is just really changing the finish of the foundation and just melting everything together. Just kind of like melts all of the powder and liquid products together, helps with creasing. Talked about this so many times. This has been completely sold out on Ulta, so what I would recommend is putting in your email to be notified when it's back in stock. Anytime this comes back in stock, I literally get like 3 or 4 because I cannot live without this stuff. This is the Catrice Dewy Glow Fixing Spray. I haven't tried their other setting spray, the pink one, so I'm not sure how that is, but the purple one is amazing. It does give you a super glowy finish, so you only need a little bit of this. I love using this on top of powder foundations as well. And the sprayer on here is so nice. If you have a shitty sprayer, you probably got a defect bottle or might be clogged or something, because everyone I've tried, I think I've gone through 3 of these now. Everyone I've tried has had like a super nice fine mist sprayer. So I'm just going to do 3 sprays because I don't feel like I need a ton of glow, but again, I just want to like melt everything together, and it just makes your skin look so plump and dewy. The main reason why I love dewy skin, especially on dry skin, but I also liked the look when I had oily skin, is because when you have dewy looking products sitting on your skin, it just looks more like skin. The products usually don't cake as much and don't look as makeup-y. If you have like a totally matte face, it obviously looks like you're wearing makeup. With dewy skin, you can just achieve the look of skin a lot easier than with matte skin. Alright, so this is what my base looks like now that it's all done. I'm not going to do my eyes or anything in this video because we're just talking about the base today, you know? But here is pretty much what I do every single day when I'm not filming a foundation video or if I'm not trying something out. This is like my go-to tried and tested routine. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Foundation Friday and found it helpful. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. I have a whole Foundation Friday playlist down below if you want to see any other foundation related videos. I literally have hundreds. I just did a foundation collection / declutter video as well. So everything is always down below in the description box, along with everything that I used and talked about today in this video. If you try this out, let me know what you think. Let me know how it works for your skin. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye. Why is there no ponytail in the vicinity?